My son declared, "I'm selling your house. You'll be living in the garage. You have 24 hours to move your things." I just smiled. He didn't know what I'd been hiding in that very garage for 35 years. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. I remembered how it all began on that sunny Tuesday morning in May. My life had been peaceful until that moment. Quiet coffee on the porch, tending my rose garden, weekly calls with my book club friends. I was 72 years old, living in the same house my late husband Robert and I had built 40 years ago in suburban Ohio. After Robert passed away 8 years earlier, I'd managed just fine on my own. My son David was 45, married to Christina for 12 years. They lived 30 minutes away in a newer development. We'd had a good relationship, or so I thought. Sunday dinners, birthday celebrations, the occasional help with yard work. Nothing extraordinary, but steady, normal. The first strange sign came 3 months before that Tuesday. David started asking pointed questions about my finances. "Mom, are you sure you can afford the property taxes? The maintenance on this old place must be killing you." I'd brushed it off. He was my son, concerned about his aging mother. Wasn't that natural? Then Christina began making comments during visits. "Such a big house for one person, don't you think, Margaret? All these stairs can't be safe at your age." She'd walk through rooms with an appraising eye, touching furniture, peering into closets. I felt like a specimen under examination. The visits increased. David would show up unannounced, always with some excuse. "Just checking the furnace." Thought I'd fix that loose step. But I'd catch him photographing rooms on his phone, measuring doorways. When I asked why, he'd smile. "Just being thorough, Mom. Want to help you maintain the place." Something felt wrong, but I couldn't articulate it. Was I being paranoid? My friend Ellen suggested I was lucky to have such an attentive son. Maybe she was right. Then came that Tuesday morning. I was watering my petunias when David's BMW pulled into the driveway. Christina sat in the passenger seat, not getting out. That should have been my first clue. David walked toward me with a folder under his arm and an expression I'd never seen before. Cold, businesslike, almost hungry. "Mom, we need to talk. Let's go inside." We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd served him countless meals as a child. He opened the folder and slid papers across the oak surface. I recognized legal letterhead. "I've been talking to a lawyer," he said flatly, "about your situation." "My situation?" "This house is too much for you. The property value has increased significantly. We're talking nearly $800,000 now. You're sitting on a fortune, Mom, and you can't even climb stairs without getting winded." My chest tightened. "I climb stairs just fine, David." He ignored me. "Christina and I have decided to help you. We're going to sell this house and use the money to set you up somewhere more appropriate, more manageable." "More appropriate?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. "The garage?" He said it casually, like announcing dinner plans. "We've looked at it. It's actually quite spacious. We can convert it into a small studio apartment. You'll have everything you need. We'll handle the sale, the renovations, everything." I stared at my son, at this stranger wearing my son's face. "David, this is my house. Mine and your father's. I'm not—" The papers are drawn up. He pushed them toward me. "You have 24 hours to start moving your essentials to the garage. We've already scheduled the estate sale company for next week. The realtor comes Friday." "You can't." "I can, actually. I've consulted with elder law attorneys. You're showing signs of diminished capacity, the forgetfulness, the confusion. I've documented everything. If you fight this, I'll pursue guardianship. It'll be messier, more expensive, and you'll end up in a state facility instead of your own garage. At least this way. You stay on the property." He stood up. Through the window, I saw Christina checking her phone, bored. 24 hours, Mom. I'm doing this for your own good. You'll understand eventually." After he left, I sat at that kitchen table for a long time. My hands were shaking. My mind raced through everything: the questions, the measurements, the sudden concern. It had all been reconnaissance, planning. My own son was stealing my home. But as the initial shock faded, something else emerged. A cold clarity. I smiled. Actually, smiled. "Busy?" I whispered to the empty kitchen. "Oh, sweetheart, you have no idea how busy I'm about to be." Because David had made one crucial mistake. He'd never asked what I'd been doing in that garage for the past 35 years. I spent that first evening in my study, door locked, going through everything systematically. This was how Robert had taught me to handle crises: assess, plan, execute. Never panic. The losses were substantial if David succeeded. My home of 4 decades, my independence, my dignity. The garden I'd cultivated for 30 years. The neighborhood where everyone knew my name. But worse than the material losses was the betrayal itself. My own child, the boy I'd raised, had looked me in the eye and threatened to declare me incompetent, had documented my supposed decline, had spoken to lawyers about taking guardianship. How long had he been planning this? Months? Years? Had every recent kindness been strategic? I felt something I hadn't experienced since Robert's death. Genuine fear. Not of dying, not of aging, but of losing control of my own life. Of being warehoused in my own garage like an inconvenient piece of furniture while my son profited from my home. But beneath the fear, something harder crystallized. Rage. Cold, focused rage. I made tea, my thinking tea, Earl Grey with honey, and forced myself to think strategically. What did I have? What were my resources? First, the obvious. I was 72, but healthy. My doctor had given me a clean bill of health at my last physical 3 months ago. I had all my faculties. I'd even started taking online courses in art history. My bank statements would show careful, rational financial management. Second, my network. Ellen and the book club ladies. My neighbor Tom, a retired police officer. My late husband's cousin Janet, who was a paralegal. Not a large circle, but loyal. Third, and most important, the garage. I walked out there after dark, using the side door from the kitchen. I hadn't been inside for 2 days. I'd been so shaken by David's ultimatum that I'd avoided my sanctuary. Now I stood in the doorway, breathing in the familiar smell of metal polish and old wood. The main garage space looked ordinary enough. Robert's old workbench, gardening tools, storage boxes labeled Christmas decorations, and Robert's fishing gear. Nothing that would interest David beyond clearing it out for his renovation. But in the back corner, behind a false wall I'd constructed myself 15 years ago, was my real secret. I moved the rolling shelving unit aside and pressed the hidden latch. The panel swung open. My workshop, my life's work. For 35 years, I'd been a jewelry designer, not as a hobby, as a profession. After David went to college, I'd turned this garage into my atelier. I'd studied under a master jeweler in Cleveland, spent years perfecting my craft. My pieces had sold in galleries from Columbus to New York City under the name M. Ross to keep it separate from my family life. Robert had known, had been proud. But I'd never told David. Why? Because my son had always been dismissive of women's crafts, as he called them. When I'd mentioned taking silversmithing classes years ago, he'd patted my hand and said, "That's nice, Mom," like a hobby. The contempt in his voice had made me decide to keep this part of my life private. Now I looked at my inventory. Custom pieces in various stages of completion. Gold, silver, platinum. Gemstones I'd collected for decades. Sapphires, emeralds, diamonds, opals. My tools, many of them antique and valuable themselves. My design books, my client records. The total value? Conservative estimate, $2 million, possibly more. David wanted me to move into this garage. He had no idea he was demanding I abandon a fortune. But more than the money, these pieces represented my autonomy, my skill, my secret life of creation and commerce. Every bracelet, every ring told a story. This was proof of my competence, my mind, my capability. I smiled in the darkness of my workshop. David had threatened me with documentation of my supposed decline. What I had was documentation of my sustained excellence. Client testimonials, purchase orders, gallery contracts, bank records showing decades of successful business management under my professional name. My plan began forming. First, I needed to secure these assets immediately. Second, I needed to establish my competency beyond any legal doubt. Third, I needed to understand exactly what legal ground David thought he was standing on. And fourth, this was the part that made my smile widen. I needed to let David believe he was winning. Let him think I was the confused old woman he'd painted me as. Let him feel confident, comfortable, careless. I pulled out my phone and called Janet. She answered on the second ring. Janet, it's Margaret. I need a lawyer. A very good lawyer. And I need one tomorrow. What's wrong? My son just tried to steal my house. There was a pause. Then, I know someone. She's a shark. When can you meet? Tomorrow morning, early. I slept well that night. The fear was gone, burned away by purpose. I met attorney Rebecca Winters at 9 a.m. in her downtown office. Janet had described her as a shark. In person, she reminded me more of a surgeon. Precise, clinical, devastating. She was perhaps 50, with silver-streaked hair and eyes that missed nothing. I laid out everything. The threats, the timeline, David's claims about my competency, the 24-hour ultimatum. I showed her the papers he'd left. They were preliminary documents from a lawyer named Harvey Stevens, outlining the process for assuming financial control over an elderly parent, showing signs of cognitive decline and poor judgment. Rebecca read them carefully. These aren't filed yet. They're threats, meant to intimidate you into compliance. Will they work? Legally? Not if you're competent, which you clearly are. But he could make things ugly. Guardianship cases can drag on. They're expensive, emotionally draining, and even if you win, the accusation alone damages your reputation. She looked up. He's counting on you being too afraid, too tired, or too confused to fight. He's miscalculated. Tell me about this garage conversion idea. I explained his plan to warehouse me in my own garage while selling my home. Rebecca's expression hardened. That's not just greedy. That's cruel. She made notes. You said you're healthy. I'll need documentation. Recent physical, mental status exam, anything that proves capacity. I can get all that. Good. Now tell me about the house. Is it in your name? This was the moment. I pulled out my folder. It's in a living trust. My husband and I established it 23 years ago. I'm the sole trustee and beneficiary. Upon my death, it goes to David. But while I'm alive, I have complete control. Rebecca's eyebrows rose. He doesn't know about the trust? I don't think so. Robert handled the legal paperwork. After he died, I never discussed it with David. I just kept paying the bills, living my life. David probably assumes it's in my name outright and thinks he can manipulate me into signing it over. Do you have the trust documents? I handed them to her. She read through them, and I watched her expression shift from professional interest to something approaching delight. Margaret, this is ironclad. He has no legal standing to force you to do anything with this property. None. Even if he pursued guardianship, which would fail, He couldn't touch a properly structured trust like this. Your husband was thorough. Robert was always thorough. There's more, I said. I need you to understand the full picture. I told her about the garage, about my jewelry business, about the 35 years of hidden professional life, about the $2 million in assets David had no idea existed. Rebecca actually laughed. He wants to move you into a space containing $2 million of your own inventory? He thinks it's just old gardening equipment and Christmas decorations. We need to secure those assets immediately. If he has a key to your house, he does. Then he could access the garage. We need to document everything today. Photographs, inventory, appraisals. I'll send someone this afternoon, and we need to move the most valuable pieces to a safe deposit box. Already planned to. Rebecca studied me. You're enjoying this. My son threatened to lock me in my own garage and declare me incompetent. You're damn right, I'm enjoying mounting a defense. We spent 2 more hours planning. Rebecca would file a preemptive declaration of capacity, including statements from my doctors and my own affidavit. We'd document my business records, proving sustained, competent management of significant assets. We'd get character witnesses, and we'd prepare for David's inevitable next move. He'll escalate when he realizes you're not cooperating, Rebecca warned. Men like him don't back down easily. He's invested in seeing you as diminished. Having that image destroyed will enrage him. Let him be enraged. That afternoon, Rebecca's investigator came to photograph my workshop. Marco was efficient and discreet, documenting every piece, every tool, every record. He arranged for a professional jewelry appraiser to visit the next day. Mrs. Ross, he said as he finished, this is museum quality work. You created all this? Over 3.5 decades. Your son has no idea? None. He shook his head. He's in for quite a surprise. That evening, David called. Mom, it's been 24 hours. Have you started packing? I was ready for this. I let my voice waver slightly. David, honey, this is all so sudden. I'm trying to sort through things, but there's so much. Just pack essentials. We'll handle the rest. But my photographs, Robert's things. We'll store what matters. The rest goes to the estate sale. I don't know if I can. Mom, his voice turned firm. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I'm coming by Friday with the contractors to assess the garage conversion. Be ready. After he hung up, I smiled. He thought he was dealing with a confused old woman scrambling to comply. He had no idea I'd spent the day building a legal fortress. Friday arrived. I'd spent 3 days executing my plan with military precision. The most valuable jewelry pieces, approximately $800,000 worth, were now in a bank-safe deposit box under my business name. The workshop was documented, photographed, appraised. My medical records were updated with a comprehensive cognitive evaluation showing perfect mental capacity. Rebecca had filed all preliminary paperwork. David arrived at 2 p.m. with Christina and 2 men in contractor uniforms. I watched from my kitchen window as they pulled up in 2 vehicles. I'd dressed carefully that morning, neat slacks, a simple blouse, minimal jewelry. I wanted to look composed, not confused. When David knocked, I opened the door with a calm expression. Mom, these are the contractors. We're going to look at the garage, discuss the conversion timeline. Actually, David, we need to talk first. Come inside. Just you and Christina. Something in my tone made him pause. Christina's eyes narrowed. They followed me to the living room, where I'd set out tea service on the coffee table. A deliberate choice. This was my home, my territory. The contractors, David started, can wait. I poured tea with steady hands. I've spent this week consulting with attorneys. The room temperature seemed to drop. Christina's cup froze halfway to her lips. Attorneys? David's voice was carefully neutral. Yes. About your proposal to take control of my house and move me into the garage. I wanted to understand the legal situation fully. Mom, I explained this. It's for your own good. Let me finish. I kept my voice pleasant but firm. I've learned several interesting things. First, this house isn't in my name. It's in a living trust your father and I established 23 years ago. I'm the sole trustee. You have no legal authority to sell it, modify it, or make any decisions about it while I'm alive and competent. David's face paled. A trust? Second, I've undergone comprehensive medical and cognitive evaluations this week. All results show full capacity. Any attempt to claim diminished capacity would fail and potentially expose you to legal liability for elder abuse. Elder abuse? Christina's voice was sharp. That's ridiculous. David has been nothing but concerned. David threatened to declare me incompetent and confine me to my own garage while selling my home without consent. That meets the legal definition. I sipped my tea. My attorney has documented everything. David stood abruptly. Your attorney? You went behind my back to behind your back? I let steel enter my voice. You consulted lawyers to steal my house and had the audacity to claim it was for my own good. Don't talk to me about going behind backs. This house is worth nothing to you while I'm alive, not $1. Christina's mask cracked. You're being selfish. Think about David's future, his inheritance. His inheritance? I laughed, and it wasn't a kind sound. He'll inherit when I'm dead, Christina, not before. And if this is how he treats me while I'm alive, I'm seriously reconsidering what that inheritance will look like. David's face flushed red. You can't, Mom, you can't cut me out. I'm your only child. After everything Everything you've what? Plotted to dispossess me? Documented my alleged incompetence? Brought contractors to my home to discuss converting my garage into a cell? It wasn't like that, David was shouting now. You're old. You can't handle this place. I was trying to help. By stealing my home? It's not stealing if you're not capable of... He stopped. The words hung in the air between us, the truth finally naked and ugly. Christina grabbed his arm. David, stop. She's got lawyers involved. We need to regroup. Regroup? David yanked his arm away. She's my mother. This is my house. It's not, I said quietly. It never was. And it never will be yours while I draw breath. I walked to the door and opened it. The contractors can leave. There will be no garage conversion. And you two are not welcome here until you apologize and abandon this scheme entirely. Christina was already moving toward the door, strategic retreat in her eyes, but David stood his ground, shaking with rage. You'll regret this. When you fall down those stairs, you refuse to leave. When you can't afford the upkeep. When you're alone and need help. Don't come crying to me. I wouldn't dream of it. They left. I watched the contractors drive away, confused. Watched David and Christina sit in their car for 10 minutes, arguing. I could see Christina's animated gestures, David's clenched fists on the steering wheel. Finally, they drove away. I closed the door, walked to my bedroom, and lay down. My hands were shaking now, adrenaline draining away. I'd stood up to my own son. I'd called his bluff. But God, it hurt. I took the weekend for myself. Turned off my phone. Worked in my garden. Let myself cry a few times, mourning the relationship I'd thought I had with David. By Monday morning, I felt stronger. The battle wasn't over. I knew that. But I'd won the first round. The first attempt at manipulation came on Wednesday. A flower delivery, 24 roses with a card. Mom, can we talk? Love, David. I called the florist and refused delivery. Thursday brought a different approach. Christina showed up alone at 10 a.m., carrying a bakery box from my favorite cafe. I watched her through the window for a full minute before deciding to answer the door. Margaret, please, can I come in? Just 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I let her in. We sat at the kitchen table again. She opened the box. Lemon scones, my weakness. I owe you an apology, Christina began. Her voice was soft, contrite. David and we handled this all wrong. We were genuinely worried about you, this big house, your age, but we went about it terribly. I said nothing, just watched her with what Rebecca had called my poker face. David's been beside himself, he can't sleep. He's realized how much he hurt you. He loves you so much, Margaret. You have to believe that. Does he? Of course, you're his mother. He wanted to make sure you were safe, that you'd be taken care of. We both did. She reached across the table, her hand stopping just short of mine. We were wrong to threaten legal action, wrong to push so hard. We see that now. What exactly do you want, Christina? Just to rebuild? To go back to how things were? Family dinners, holidays together. David misses you. Her eyes glistened. Were those real tears? Can we start over? Forget all this legal mess and just be family again? Forget? I kept my voice neutral. Forget that David consulted lawyers about declaring me incompetent? Forget that he demanded I move into my garage? Forget that he had contractors coming to convert my home without my consent? It sounds so terrible when you put it that way. It is terrible, Christina, that's the point. But we can move past it. Families forgive, families heal. She leaned forward earnestly. All you'd need to do is tell your lawyer to drop whatever paperwork she filed. We'll drop ours. Clean slate. There it was. The real request, hidden in the emotional appeal. And the house? I asked. A flicker of something crossed her face. Calculation, before the concerned expression returned. We can discuss that later, when emotions aren't so high. Maybe you'd consider downsizing voluntarily. We could help you find a lovely condo, something manageable. You'd have money left over for travel, for enjoying your retirement. While David moves into this house? Well, she tried to look reluctant. It would make financial sense. The property taxes alone. Christina, I cut her off. Thank you for the scones, but you should leave now. Margaret, please. No. I stood up. You're not here to apologize. You're here to manipulate me into dropping my legal protections so David can proceed with his original plan. The answer is no. It will remain no. Please leave. Her face hardened. The mask of concern evaporated, replaced by cold anger. You're making a mistake. David is your only family. When you're alone and need help, I'll call someone who actually cares about me, not someone who sees me as an obstacle to real estate. After she left, I called Ellen. Can you come over? I need sane people around me. Within an hour, my living room filled with the book club ladies, Ellen, Patricia, Susan, and Dorothy. Women I'd known for 20 years. I told them everything. That bastard, Dorothy said flatly. She was 81 and had stopped mincing words decades ago. Your own son. Did you really tell them to leave? Patricia asked, impressed. Slammed the door on them figuratively. Literally, I was quite polite about it. Good, Ellen said firmly. Margaret, you know we're here for you, whatever you need. I need witnesses, I said. Character witnesses, if this goes to court. People who can testify that I'm sharp, capable, independent. Done, Susan said immediately. We'll document everything, times, dates, conversations, proof of your competence. That evening, Tom from next door came by. Saw some visitors earlier. Everything okay? I explained the situation, edited version, but honest. Tom's expression darkened. Your son tried to do what? Exactly. Margaret, you need to know I saw him here 3 weeks ago. Middle of the day when you were out. He had keys, went through your garage, spent 20 minutes in there. My blood chilled. He was searching for assets? Didn't know what he was looking for, but yeah, seemed like it. Did he find the workshop? Workshop? I'd hidden it too well. Even my searches couldn't discover my secret. Small comfort, but comfort nonetheless. That night, I sat in my study and realized something important. I wasn't alone. I had allies. Real ones, not people trying to steal my home and independence. David and Christina had shown their true faces. I'd responded with cold refusal. Now they knew. I wouldn't be manipulated, bribed, or guilted into surrender. They came back on Saturday morning. Both of them, this time with different energy, calculated warmth, like actors who'd rehearsed their roles. David knocked softly, calling through the door. "Mom, it's us. Please, we really need to talk. We brought brunch." I'd been expecting this. After Christina's solo mission failed, they'd regroup and try together. Classic manipulation tactic. Good cop, both insisting they only wanted reconciliation. I opened the door. They stood there with bagels, coffee, and Oscar-worthy expressions of remorse. "We're not here to argue," David said immediately, hands up in a peaceable gesture. "We just want to clear the air. Really talk mother to son." "Please?" Against the cold voice in my head, warning me not to, I let them in. Sometimes you need to see the whole performance to understand the script. We sat in the living room. David arranged the food carefully, overly attentive. "Is this chair comfortable for you, Mom? Do you need a cushion?" The kind of solicitous concern that's performed for an audience. "Mom, I've been doing a lot of thinking," David began, his voice heavy with emotion. "About Dad. About what he would say if he saw us like this, fighting, low blow, invoking Robert. Your father," I said quietly, "would be horrified at what you've tried to do." I know, and I've been terrible." He put his head in his hands. When he looked up, his eyes were red. "I was scared, Mom. Scared of losing you. You're getting older, and I thought if I controlled the situation, controlled the house, I could protect you. But I went about it all wrong." Christina nodded supportively, rubbing his back. "We both did. We let fear drive us to make terrible decisions." "Fear?" I kept my voice level. "Is that what made you consult lawyers about declaring me incompetent?" "That was panic," David said quickly. "Stupid panic. I wasn't thinking straight. But Mom, I'm here now, clear-headed, and I just want my mother back. I want Sunday dinners. I want to help with your garden. I want things to be normal again." "Normal?" I repeated. "Yes, exactly." He leaned forward, earnest. "Forget all the legal stuff. You drop your lawyers, we drop everything, and we just go back to being a family. Isn't that what really matters?" There was the hook, coded in sentiment, but still a hook. "And the house?" I asked. David hesitated, then sighed. Okay. You're right to keep it. It's your home. We were wrong to push." "Completely wrong," Christina added. "But," David continued, and there was always a but, "we need you to understand something. Christina and we're struggling financially. The market crash hurt us badly. We've been borrowing against our mortgage. We're looking at bankruptcy, Mom." Christina's eyes filled with tears. "We didn't want to burden you with this. We thought if this house could be sold, or if you could help us." David's voice broke. "We're desperate, Mom. We could lose everything. I know we went about it terribly, but underneath it all, we just needed help." And there it was. The real play. Not reconciliation, a different kind of theft. Emotional extortion dressed as family crisis. "How much do you need?" I asked, my voice carefully neutral. Hope flashed in David's eyes. "If you could mortgage this place, maybe $200,000, it would save us. We'd pay you back." "With what?" You just said you're bankrupt. Eventually, when things turn around. No. The word hung in the air like a gunshot. Mom? No. I stood up. You're not in financial crisis. Rebecca's investigator checked. You bought a new BMW 3 months ago. Christina's Instagram shows a vacation in Aruba last month. Your story is a lie. David's face transformed. The mask of remorseful sun shattered, revealing something ugly underneath: rage, entitlement, contempt. You had us investigated? His voice was venomous. Your own son? After you consulted lawyers to steal my house? Absolutely. This house should be mine. He was shouting now, all pretense abandoned. Dad built it, and when you're gone, it comes to me anyway. Why are you being so stubborn? Why can't you just make this easy? Easy? I felt my own anger rising. Easy would be rolling over while you rob me. Easy would be letting you gaslight me into thinking I'm incompetent. Easy would be moving into my garage like a discarded pet. Christina grabbed David's arm. Let's go. She's not going to help us. Help you? I laughed bitterly. You mean finance your greed with my home? David stepped closer, his face inches from mine. You're a selfish old woman. Dad would be ashamed of you. Get out of my house. It'll be my house soon enough. Old women fall downstairs all the time, break hips, need nursing homes, can't manage alone. Was that a threat? My heart hammered, but I kept my voice steady. Get out. They left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I watched through the curtains as they sat in the car, David pounding the steering wheel, Christina talking rapidly, gesturing. My hands were shaking. Not from fear this time, but from adrenaline and something colder. The absolute certainty that my son had just threatened me. I immediately called Rebecca and recounted everything. He threatened you physically? Her voice was razor sharp. Implied it. Old women fall downstairs. I'm documenting this. Margaret, you might want to consider security cameras and definitely change your locks. He has keys, right? I'll call a locksmith today. After hanging up, I sat in my living room, in my home, and let myself feel the fear for just a moment. Fear of my own child. Fear of what he might do next. Then I transformed the fear into something harder. Determination. Resolve. David had shown me who he really was. No more masks, no more pretense. Now I knew exactly what I was dealing with, and I was ready for war. The subpoena came 2 weeks later. David had filed for emergency guardianship after all, claiming I was a danger to myself and suffering from dementia. The court hearing was set for Thursday, 10 a.m. He's gone nuclear, Rebecca said over the phone. He's submitted affidavits claiming you're forgetful, irrational, and financially reckless. He's even got a doctor, Dr. Morrison, who'll testify you refused cognitive testing. I've never met a Dr. Morrison. I know, that's what makes this perjury. He's fabricating evidence. Can he do that? He can try. But Margaret, we're going to bury him. Are you ready? I've been ready since the day he demanded I move into my garage. Thursday arrived. I dressed in a navy suit, professional, competent, utterly composed. Rebecca met me at the courthouse with a rolling briefcase full of evidence. The courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined. Judge Patricia Hendricks presided, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no-nonsense demeanor. David sat with his lawyer, Harvey Stevens, at one table. Christina sat in the gallery, watching. The hearing began. Harvey presented David's case. Concerned son, aging mother showing clear signs of decline, refusal to accept help, living alone in a house too large and dangerous for her needs. Mr. Carson has documented multiple instances of forgetfulness, Harvey said, presenting papers. His mother forgot their lunch appointment 3 times last month. She leaves the stove on. She repeats herself in conversation. All lies, but Harvey delivered them confidently. Then David took the stand. "Mr. Carson," Harvey said gently, "tell the court about your mother's condition." David's performance was masterful. Worried son, anguished by his mother's decline. "She's not the woman she was. She forgets things constantly. Last month, she called me at 2 a.m., confused about where she was. She thought my father was still alive, asked when he was coming home. I felt Rebecca's hand on my arm, steadying. And when you tried to help her, she became hostile, paranoid, accused me of trying to steal her house when all I wanted was to ensure her safety. She's hired lawyers to fight against her own son's attempts to help her." His voice broke. "I love my mother. I just want her protected, even if it's from herself." The judge listened impassively, making notes. Then Rebecca stood. "Your Honor, I'd like to call Mrs. Margaret Carson to the stand." I walked to the witness box, steady and calm. "I'd been preparing for this moment for weeks," Rebecca began gently. "Mrs. Carson, your son claims you called him at 2 a.m., confused about your husband's death. Did that happen?" "No. My phone records show no calls to David at any time past 9 p.m. in the last 6 months. He claims you forgot lunch appointments 3 times last month?" "We had no lunch appointments scheduled. I have a calendar, both paper and digital, documenting every appointment, none with David." "He claims you're financially reckless?" "I've managed my finances independently for 8 years since my husband's death. My bank statements show consistent, rational management. No missed payments, no overdrafts, excellent credit score." Rebecca pulled out document after document. My medical records showing perfect cognitive function. My business records proving sustained competent management of a complex jewelry design company. Tax returns showing careful financial planning. Character statements from Ellen, Patricia, the other book club members, Tom, the retired police officer, all testifying to my clear competence. "And Mrs. Carson," Rebecca said, "can you tell the court about your professional work?" This was the moment. I looked directly at David as I spoke. "For 35 years, I've run a successful jewelry design business from my home workshop. I work under the professional name M. Ross. My pieces have sold in galleries from Cleveland to New York City. My current inventory is valued at approximately $2 million. David's face went white. Christina's jaw dropped. $2 million? The judge asked. "Yes, Your Honor. I've maintained this business, managed international clients, handled complex custom orders, and sustained continuous creative and commercial output for over 3 decades. All while my son apparently believed me too incompetent to manage my own home." Rebecca presented the portfolio, photographs of my workshop, my pieces, my client testimonials. Gallery owners praising Ross's professionalism and artistry. 35 years of business records. The judge examined everything silently. Then she looked at David. "Mr. Carson, you filed for emergency guardianship claiming your mother is financially reckless and mentally incompetent. Yet she's been running a multi-million-dollar business you knew nothing about," David stammered. I didn't know about any business. She never told me." "Why would she need to tell you?" The judge's voice was sharp. "She's an independent adult managing her own affairs quite successfully." Harvey tried to recover. "Your Honor, the business could be fabricated. 35 years of tax returns are fabricated?" The judge cut him off. "Gallery sales records are fabricated. Professional appraisals are fabricated." Rebecca stood. "Your Honor, I'd like to address the affidavit from Dr. Morrison." "Please." "Dr. Morrison has no record of Mrs. Carson as a patient. I've contacted his office. He's never evaluated her. This affidavit appears to be fraudulent." The courtroom went silent. The judge turned to David, her expression glacial. "Mr. Carson, did you submit false testimony to this court?" David's composure cracked completely. It wasn't. I was told she needed evaluation. I thought." "You thought you'd commit perjury to steal your mother's house? It's not like that. The house should be mine eventually anyway. I was just trying to..." To what? Accelerate your inheritance by having your competent mother declared incompetent through falsified evidence? Harvey was frantically whispering to David, but David was unraveling, his face red, his voice rising. She's being unreasonable. She's old. That house is worth $800,000, and she's just sitting in it alone. Mr. Carson? The judge's voice cracked like a whip. Stop talking. David fell silent, breathing hard. Judge Hendricks reviewed her notes one final time. Then she looked up. Petition for guardianship denied. Mrs. Carson has demonstrated clear capacity and competence. Furthermore, Mr. Carson's filing appears to involve fraudulent testimony and false affidavits. I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for investigation of potential perjury and elder abuse charges. David's face drained of color. Elder abuse? I'm her son, who attempted to have her declared incompetent through fraud, who, according to her testimony, threatened her and demanded she vacate her home. That meets the statutory definition, Mr. Carson. The gavel came down. It was over. The district attorney's office moved faster than I expected. Within a week, David received notice he was under investigation for elder abuse, attempted fraud, and perjury. Harvey Stevens had immediately distanced himself, claiming he'd been misled by his client. Dr. Morrison turned out to be a real doctor, but one David had consulted about his own anxiety, not about me. David had forged the signature on the affidavit. That alone was a felony. Rebecca called me with updates each day. The DA is taking this seriously. Elder abuse is prosecuted aggressively in this county, and the fraudulent legal documents are slam-dunk evidence. What's he facing? Worst case? 3 to 5 years, more likely given that he's a first-time offender, probation, and massive fines. But Margaret, he'll have a criminal record. This will follow him. I felt no satisfaction in that, but no regret either. David had chosen this path. Christina filed for divorce 3 days after the hearing. According to my neighbor Tom, she'd moved out within 48 hours of the court's decision. She was smart enough to abandon a sinking ship. 2 weeks later, Rebecca called with different news. David's lawyer reached out. He wants to settle. Settle what? Everything. He'll sign a document admitting to his actions, relinquishing any future claim to your property, and formally apologizing. In exchange, you'd agree not to pursue civil damages and would support a plea deal that avoids jail time. I was silent for a long moment. What do you recommend? Personally, make him suffer. But legally, a settlement gives you closure without a protracted criminal trial. You'd have his admission in writing. He'd be on probation for 5 years, 1 violation, and he goes to prison. I want one more thing. Name it. He has to pay my legal fees, every penny. Rebecca laughed. Done. I'll draft the agreement. The settlement meeting took place in Rebecca's conference room. David looked like he'd aged 10 years. Gray-faced, hollow-eyed, defeated. His new lawyer, a public defender named James Wright, looked exhausted. I sat across from my son and felt nothing but cold distance. James presented the terms. David would sign a legal document admitting he had attempted to defraud me, had submitted false evidence to the court, and had engaged in financial elder abuse. He would relinquish all claims to my property. He would pay $47,000 in my legal fees. He would enter a plea deal for probation. And the apology, Rebecca added, written and verbal. David's hands shook as he signed each document. Then he looked up at me, and for the first time since this began, I saw genuine emotion in his face. Not regret exactly, but loss. Mom, His voice was hoarse. I'm sorry, I was wrong about everything. Yes, I said simply. You were. I don't know what I thought. That you were declining, that I could manage things better, that the house was just sitting there wasted. He stopped, shook his head. I was greedy and stupid, and I've lost you. You lost me the moment you threatened to declare me incompetent. I know. He looked down. I can't ask you to forgive me. No, I agreed, you can't. But maybe someday. David. I stopped him. You're my son. I gave birth to you, raised you, loved you. But you looked me in the eye and tried to steal my home, my independence, my dignity. You fabricated evidence to have me declared mentally incompetent. You threatened me in my own house. I kept my voice steady. I don't know if there's a way back from that. I truly don't. He nodded slowly, tears streaming down his face. I understand. The meeting ended. David signed everything, agreed to everything. He'd avoided prison, but at tremendous cost: his mother, his wife, his reputation, and nearly $50,000 in legal fees that would take him years to pay off. As he left, he turned back once. The jewelry business, your work, it's beautiful, Mom. I looked it up online. M. Ross. I never knew you could create things like that. No, I said quietly. You never wanted to know. After they left, Rebecca poured us both whiskey from her office bar. You won, she said, raising her glass. Complete victory. It doesn't feel like victory. I know. But Margaret, you protected yourself. You stood your ground. You refused to be victimized by your own child. That takes tremendous courage. I sipped the whiskey, feeling it burn. I suppose. What will you do now? I smiled, and this time it was real. Live my life, on my terms, in my house, creating my art, exactly as I have been for 35 years. To independence, Rebecca said. To independence, I echoed. We drank. Outside the window, the city continued its business, indifferent to the small drama that had just concluded. A mother had defeated her son's betrayal. Justice had been served. And I was free. 6 months passed. Autumn arrived, painting my maple trees in shades of gold and crimson. I stood in my garden, still my garden, in my house, and breathed in the crisp October air. Life had changed, but for the better. My jewelry business flourished in ways it never had before. After the court case, a local journalist had written a human interest story. The Secret Artist. 72-year-old jewelry designer defeats son's elder abuse attempt. The article featured photographs of my workshop and several of my pieces. The response was overwhelming. Orders poured in. A gallery in Cincinnati offered me a solo show. NPR's local affiliate interviewed me for a segment on hidden artists and late-life creativity. My website, which I'd finally updated, with Ellen's help, received thousands of views. You're famous, Ellen said, laughing as we had coffee on my porch. Emma Ross is trending. At 72, I'm trending. Robert would find that hilarious. Robert would be so proud. She was right. I felt his presence sometimes in my workshop, imagined him smiling at the way everything had unfolded. The book club ladies had rallied around me completely. They'd organized a celebration dinner after the settlement, made me the unofficial mascot of older women refusing to be dismissed. Patricia had even started her own blog about aging and autonomy, using my story as inspiration. Tom next door had installed security cameras for me, just in case, he'd said, though we both knew David wouldn't return. Still, I appreciated the peace of mind. I'd also done something I'd been considering for years. I'd started teaching. Once a week, I held small jewelry-making workshops in my garage studio for women over 60. The waiting list was 6 months long. You're giving us permission, one student told me after class. Permission to have secret lives, hidden talents, to not be just grandmas and retired nurses. You're showing us we're still whole people. That meant more than any gallery sale. I'd also updated my will, working with Rebecca to ensure my estate was ironclad. The house and my business would eventually go to a trust benefiting local arts education. David would receive a token $1,000, enough to prevent him from contesting, small enough to make a point. My life had become fuller, richer, more purposeful than it had been in years. Funny how crisis can clarify what matters. David's life, meanwhile, had collapsed spectacularly. I didn't seek out information about him, but in a small community, news travels. Tom would mention things. Ellen would hear through the grapevine. Rebecca would occasionally update me on the legal aftermath. The divorce from Christina had been vicious. She'd taken nearly everything, the house, the savings, even the BMW. Turned out she'd been documenting David's financial mismanagement for years, waiting for the right moment. His attempted fraud against me had been that moment. David now lived in a small apartment across town. His job at the insurance company, where he'd worked for 15 years, had terminated him after the elder abuse charges became public. Moral turpitude, they'd called it. Bad for business to employ someone who'd tried to defraud his own mother. He'd found work eventually, but nothing close to his former position. Last I heard, he was doing contract data entry, making perhaps a third of his former salary. The financial penalties had devastated him. Beyond my legal fees, he'd had his own lawyer costs, the divorce, the fines from his probation. He'd had to sell his luxury watch collection, his golf club membership, anything of value. But worse than the financial ruin was the social cost. His friends had abandoned him. His country club had quietly revoked his membership. Christina had ensured everyone in their social circle knew exactly what he'd done, attempted to steal from his elderly mother, forged documents, committed perjury. He showed up at the club anyway last month, Tom had told me. Tried to have lunch. People got up and left, just stood up mid-meal and walked away from him. I felt a complicated pang at that. Not quite sympathy. He'd earned his exile. But sadness at the waste of it all. He'd had a good life, a successful career, a mother who loved him. He'd destroyed it all through greed and arrogance. Patricia, ever the philosopher, had said it best. He didn't just lose his inheritance, he lost his integrity. And you can't rebuild that with money. On Thanksgiving, I hosted the book club ladies for dinner. My dining room filled with laughter, wine, and the warmth of genuine friendship. We toasted to second acts, to hidden strengths, to refusing to be diminished. Tom joined us with his daughter. Ellen brought her sister. My house felt alive with family, not blood family, but chosen family, the kind that matters most. As I carved the turkey, I caught my reflection in the dining room mirror. A 72-year-old woman, yes, but strong, independent. Surrounded by love and respect. I was exactly where I belonged. In my home, on my terms. Living the life I'd built with my own hands.